Thank you. Really appreciate that. We are at the tail end of the afternoon. I request you to summon some energy as we come to a close. For my panelists, this will be the last panel for the day and for this afternoon. I'll just begin by introducing them. And thank you, Steve, has introduced me. So Mr. Madubeko is Deputy Director with the Bank of Zambia. We also have Mr. Akum David from the Bank of South Sudan. We have Sharon Omunyana from the RISA. And Sisi, you've met earlier from Glenbrook. And what we are going to tackle now is the role of inclusive, instant payments, and what the role of government and regulators in building inclusive instant payment systems. And I'm going to request Mr. Madubeko to go first, since we are, he's the host. Please go ahead, Mr. Madubeko. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and the bank, and then.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Victor. And welcome to all the delegates to Zambia. And we are happy to have you. We hope you enjoy besides the meetings, I think we'll have a chance to see much of Lusaka and other parts of Zambia. So in terms of brief introductions, as already quoted, I'm an Assistant Director responsible for payment systems oversight at the Central Bank in Zambia. And I've been in the Central Bank for some time now. I think dealing specifically with payments issues, I think for the last 6 to 7 years. Now, coming to the question, the role of government in the payment systems arena, and particularly to do with inclusive payment systems. I think as Zambia, we have had an experience in this area, and it's, I think, something that we can share. I think particularly, largely and broadly, you would say that as a central bank or government, I think the role would be to make the environment more enabling, ensuring that you have the specific regulations that can enable the country to start the process of taking up or implementing fast payments. An example I would give is an experience we had with the current national financial switch, which has got all the conditions that meets a fast payment platform or an instant payment platform. So back in the days, about 2015, I think the central bank in NST began to implement the national financial switch. And to achieve that goal, I think the central bank had to bring together all the key players, which comes now to the need for collaboration and involvement of all the key stakeholders. And through that arrangement, I think we're able now to work together with the market to begin to modernize our national payment system. And work was done to ensure that we came up now with what type of infrastructure do we have, and what then should we be putting in place to be able to meet the direction that we are going. And the challenge was that at the time, even financial inclusion in Zambia was very low, and there was need to increase financial inclusion. And that was the main drive for the country. At the time, I think 2015, if you look at formal financial inclusion, it was sitting around 38%. And before that, we had a figure lower than that. So in an effort to ensure that we move financial inclusion in the country, there was need for us now to go the route of introducing faster payments. And we took stock of our technological advancements that were in the country at the time, the players that were there at the time, and we had to involve all those that were key in achieving the process of the switch. So in a nutshell, the role of the central bank or government is to make the environment enabling, pass the right regulation, and also look at the needs of the customers that are being, as a government, you are there to safeguard a customer or the final person there. Indeed, that's why you even have to run what we call an efficient and stable financial payment system. So in so doing, you need to ensure that you look out for the customer. You want to have a stable environment which to run your payments. So largely it's regulation in the part of the central bank.
Thank you so much. Maybe just one follow-on question. What is the role of the regulator in terms of carrot and stick? You talked about collaboration, but sometimes the market players are not that collaborative. What has been your experience in terms of trying to get the market to move in a particular direction?
I think from our experience is that I think we are more collaborative with the market. But of course, we have had those instances whereby you have to nudge some of the players to come to the table and be able to look at how to play a role in the process of implementing the system. Because ideally, if you look at the implementing an inclusive payment system, you need also funding. In that funding, you find that you have to assess, maybe as a government, central bank, you may need to contribute, or even the players may need to contribute. And as a community, once you agree, the central bank is there now to monitor, to ensure that what has been agreed upon is implemented. So you have to, at times you will nudge to get the sanctions or just discussion with the respective player. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning to Sisi, maybe Sisi, you could introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about Glenbrook, and then what is the role of level 1 principles in building an inclusive and instant payment system?
Sure. So again, I'm Cece Northup. I'm with Glenbrook Partners. We're a payment strategy consulting firm, and I would be delighted to speak to level 1. I have to acknowledge that I will do my best to embody some folks who are actually on the level 1 project team here and in the room who I think can speak to this as well. The level 1 project provides a vision and a blueprint and a set of best practices for building inclusive instant payment systems. It was born almost a decade ago at this point. And what the level 1 project did, again, if I can manifest the team as best as I can, there was an acknowledgement that at the Gates Foundation, in their role as grant makers, there was a small component of payments in many of the grants that they were making to promote health and education in various markets. And there was a recognition that, hey, perhaps there's something bigger here that needs to be addressed if in every grant, this role of payment needs to be improved, managed, delivered. And so thus was born the Financial Services for the Poor team at the Gates Foundation. And what they did to kick off what is now the level 1 project principles is extensive research into, I think, over 36 markets to say what aspects of system design promote inclusivity. And what resulted is a set of principles that are now the level 1 project principles. Those include absolutely critical aspects like bank and non-bank access to the system, low to no end user fees, the system operating as a cost recovery plus investment business model, at a minimum same-day settlement, the implementation of a shared fraud utility in the center of the system to decrease fraud risk. There are many others. The set of sort of best practices have expanded over the years. And what's most interesting to me about the level 1 project principles is really 2 things. One, they continue to be evergreen. Fast forward 10 years, and these are principles that are still proving to promote inclusivity in designing instant payment systems. And very interestingly, too, what was once controversial, say 7 years ago, interoperability as an example, is now absorbed by the community as a best practice. And so we're seeing the role of advocacy at, in my humble opinion, the benefits of advocacy over a decade really be absorbed to drive inclusivity. And we're seeing the benefits of that come to life. And so today, what are now common features of inclusive instant payment systems, things like irrevocability, that's another one that, 5 years ago was hugely controversial. And so the level 1 project principles provide evergreen principles for inclusive instant payment system design and a number of best practices. And I would encourage you to reach out to Miller, Matt, Dilly, who are in the room, who have a lot of very good material on certain aspects of system design to help extend those best practices into reality. For example, how do you implement a QR code in a way that's inclusive? The last thing I'll add is that the level 1 project principles are often spoken of in terms of compliance. I would encourage a reorientation to alignment. I think the principles can't be taken individually. They do need to be thought of as a collective. And the collection of them drives inclusivity. That being said, in any given market, there's nuance that needs to be accommodated for. There's specialization that needs to be acknowledged. And so the level 1 project really takes a tact of alignment as opposed to compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe then we'll move to Akum David. I'll come back to you with a question after. Akum, maybe looking at South Sudan, and we do know that from the map we saw it's a vast territory, and you're building an inclusive payment system. What do you see as the possible challenges that you will have, and how do you make sure or do your level best to build a system that does not leave anyone behind?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me appreciate Malu for giving us this opportunity to visit Zambia. Let me just give you a brief background of our national payment system. I think out of 97 countries that has implemented the national payment system, we are the last country that has not yet implemented the state-of-the-art national payment system. So it started when we got independent in 2011. And during that time, we're not yet members of the EAC. So in 2016 is when now we become part of the EAC. So there's a project in the region that is being supported by African Development Bank. So they onboarded us, and we started our national payment system from scratch, from a zero. So what we did was the institution itself, the department wasn't existing in the central bank. So with the support of the project, we had to establish the department in 2022. And concurrently, we're also trying to, the same project supported the bank supported the bank to, how do I say, supported the bank on the vision and the mission for what kind of national payment system do we need to have as a country. The same project also supported the bank to build legal framework. Then the same project also supported the bank to look into the institutional capacity assessment. And so basically the bank started from zero. We are yet building now our national payment system. And currently now we have onboarded the technical consultant looking at the specification, what kind of system we'll have as a country. So we will be live by the end of this year if everything goes on well. We have already identified the vendor, and the contract is being awarded. So basically, that's a brief background I can give you. Just to come to my point regarding the inclusive payment, with the support of African Nenda and Malu, just let me define what an inclusive payment is. An inclusive payment system are designed to ensure that as many people as possible, regardless of their background or circumstances, have access to financial services. So what will inclusive payment assist? How will it support South Sudan? First, by reducing poverty. Many people in South Sudan live in poverty and lack access to traditional banking services. So inclusive payment can provide them with a tool to save, transfer money, and access credit, which can help improve the financial stability and quality of life. Remote and underserved areas in South Sudan has many remote and underserved areas. Inclusive payment, especially digital financial, can help reach this population who may have limited access to physical bank. There is also conflict-affected areas in South Sudan has experienced ongoing conflict which has disrupted traditional banking infrastructures. Inclusive payment can offer alternative means of financial access in these areas. Youth and women empowerment. Inclusive payment can tailor to target a specific demographic such as youth. such as youth and women. Agriculture, rural and rural development. The majority of South Sudanese population rely on agriculture for their livelihood. Inclusive payment system can support farmers by facilitating transaction, credit, and saving related to their agriculture. Foreign remittances. South Sudanese living abroad send remittance to their families. Back home, inclusive payment can provide efficient and cost-effective ways for remittance to reach the intended recipient. Just to answer your question of how we succeeded as a country, it was really challenging for us to implement some of the components of the national payment system. But as Shishi said it before, what we did was a collaborative approach to make sure that everyone was involved in the process. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sharon, the same question, looking at the role of government in Rwanda and with a special reference to language, culture, and sensitivity to diverse population groups. If you could, yes, please go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. Again, I'm here representing the Rwanda Information Society Authority, which is an arm of the Ministry of ICT and Innovation in Rwanda, in charge of coordinating, implementing the ICT for development agenda. Starting with the role of the government, I would say that, so government, in this particular case for RISA, inclusive instant payments and the government's agenda do blend, mainly because we look at three roles, one being the regulation part, being able to steward consumer protection, and additionally, the second part would be digital literacy, making sure that the instant payment systems that are being introduced are common to the least digital literate person. And then lastly, we would also look at the infrastructure bit. The role of the government here we play is, the government needs to be able that these systems have available funding. And this will mean either, partnering with funders, and this goes to thank our funders, African and Gates Foundation, who have been really here with us on the implementation of the Rwanda National Switch. And then also on the part of language and culture sensitivity, we're looking at being able to have inclusive instant payment systems that are customizing the user journey and everything based off the local behavior, local languages, and all that. And it is not just for the sake of doing that, it is for the sake of being able to have a system that the end user, the person who just learned how to use a mobile phone, will access easily, conveniently, but also is, as mentioned earlier, the level 1 principles of advocating for inclusivity, it also sends a message that this is for everyone. This platform is for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you in a second. So maybe I'll just start with, the final questions for each one of you. Cici, I'll start with you again. The issue of trust and fraud. We've seen a lot of challenges with digital platforms where people have lost their savings or lost certain value. How do you see the regulator or whichever institution is in the payment space working more effectively to combat the issue of cybercrime?
Thanks, Victor. Before I answer your very important question, I just want to build on Sharon's wonderful response. I think another important role of the government is use of the system. G2P and P2G transfers are both really important money in and money out use cases. Just to take one case study as an example, I think the Brazil PIX system, which has been mentioned once before, and which for many of you who are familiar with the system has shown sort of dramatic transaction volumes in a very short period of time. They used PIX to provide, the government of Brazil used PIX to provide G2P transfers during COVID, and it resulted in, I think, 30 to 40 million net new accounts that were opened. If you fast forward 2 years later, the last report I read, the Central Bank of Brazil is through a very rigorous analysis attributing over 70 million new accounts to the implementation of PIX. So G2P transfers as a use case show some, there's illustration of some efficacy there. As for the very important question about fraud, I think it is an ecosystem approach that needs to be taken. Fraud risk in an inclusive instant payment system is comes to life differently than in other systems, but it is no different than other systems. Any system that any financial services system that gains volume is going to attract fraudsters. So the same is true here. We need to do our best as an ecosystem to figure out low cost, low friction ways of mitigating fraud. Just to emphasize sort of how fraud comes to life in inclusive instant payment systems. Because of the nature of the payment, it's a push, irrevocable, immediate funds availability transfer. The fraud comes to life really in two categories: authorized push payment fraud and unauthorized push payment fraud. There are a number of things that regulators, systems, financial services providers, and end users can do to mitigate this fraud risk. The Level 1 project is actually producing a forthcoming report on fraud mitigation best practices, really speaking to the role of the IPS and what they can do related to rules, tools, data, and very controversial subjects like liability to help decrease fraud risk in an IPS. And it, along with the set of principles comes, I think, 14 best practices. And so when this comes to life, I think it'll be very useful to the community to think about how to decrease fraud. And I'll just add fraud risk, as we know, I think all of us in this room have a story of someone trying to phish us or someone close to us or our friend. And I think what's really critical here is when we think about inclusivity, someone living off of $2 a day, the impact of fraud is hugely meaningful to their daily lives. Glenbrook conducted research in India, Ghana, and Uganda to explore this more deeply. And what we found is that people who are living on less than $2 a day, when they are faced with a fraud experience, they're unable to pay for healthcare expenses, for education expenses, things that impact their and their family's well-being. It also decreases trust in the system in a really notable way. I'll just share one stat that's really meaningful to me, which is that in India, 3 in every 10 persons who experienced a fraud event stopped using DFS as a result of that experience. So we need to get in front of these experiences and do as much as we can to prevent them. And then when they do happen, we need to make sure that appropriate dispute resolution processes and liabilities are in place to promote trust in the ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you want to add something? Oh, no. You want to add something? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I also wanted to add that, you know, the focus of having inclusive instant payment system is mainly on ease of transactions, making it easy, but there's also that component of saying that, you know, as much as we're focusing on building this, we need to also focus on the security aspect equally. And that will save a lot of hurdle later of trying to deal with fraudulent cases. And then another point is also making sure that there is also the part of education that is really emphasized, because you are, as you mentioned, we all know cases of mobile money, M-Pesa, we're just talking about it. you're developing this product and taking it to someone who doesn't really know how to use a smartphone. As governments and implementers, there's also the need to also invest highly in these programs. For example, in Rwanda, we have what we call the Digital Acceleration Program, which only focuses on education. They go down to rural areas and making sure that they have a list of, they have a module of educating people on how to use smartphones, how to access these USSDs, how to move from step 1 to step 2. But it also requires consistency to make sure that the person you develop the product for understands these aspects and is not being tricked. I think that's also another security measure that is very key. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to echo what my sister just said, one of the importance of inclusive payment.
Could you hold the mic a little closer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One important aspect of inclusive payment system can include mobile money, digital wallet, and other fintechs solutions that enable people to conduct financial transactions, even in areas without traditional banking infrastructure. This system can improve financial access, reduce cash reliance on cash, enhance security, and promote economic development for countries like South Sudan. We may have a unique challenge designing and implementing inclusive payment system can be a strategic a step in improving financial inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Madubeko, just one follow-on question in terms of the principles. One is affordability. And I just wanted to know what do you feel is the role of the regulator in driving instant inclusive payment systems that are affordable to the bottom of the pyramid? Because it's one thing to provide a service, but it's another for people to be able to pay for it. How can the regulator support affordability?
Thank you, Victor. Maybe just a comment, I think, on the earlier question where you asked with regards to mitigating frauds.
Fraud, yes.
So I think as put by everyone else is that I think risk management is very key. This risk management is key on the part of the operator of the system, also on the part of the participants in that platform, and also as indicated, the need for consumer education and all that very key as well. And then the other bit I think that also needs to be very key is a bit on those that have already offended. They need to be prosecuted. So there's need also for the prosecutors or the judiciary to be there to help and discharge these cases as quickly as possible. I think once people know that these offenses are punishable, then they will avoid to involve themselves in these activities. And also the part of government, I think when it comes to infrastructure for the identification of persons, also very key. The foundation ID is very key. If you have a biometric ID, you will be able to see that most of these people who want to commit these frauds. Okay. So just to mention that part. So the part of affordability, I think this is a balance that has to be achieved. I think as a central bank or a government should not be seen to be regulating pricing, but allow the market forces to be able to handle that so that all the participants find profit in whatever work they are doing, as well have made investments in participating in that platform. But as a central bank or government, government can come in to just be able to make sure that those prices, the prices that are quoted by various institutions, are not more like exploitative on the part of the users. And where possible, government can even sponsor some of the activities as a public good to be able to make sure that they bring down the cost of providing that service. So ideally, collaboration also comes in so much that the parties that are involved understand what you're driving at as government, because we are pushing financial inclusion. And by so doing, you don't want to make it difficult for the people who should be accessing the services. So in a way, I think measures can be put in place to ensure that the cost is I think cost reflective and more meaningful for the persons that will be using the services. That's how I'd put it. Thank you.
Or would you like to comment on that as we come to a close?
2 minutes, yeah.
We just have 2 minutes now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for interest of
just hold it closer.
Of this.
Hold the mic closer.
For the interest of this gathering, let me just tell you that we have a very unique, South Sudan, we're coming from behind. So we have a very unique, it's good when you come from behind. We are leapfrogging. We don't need to go through what other countries went through. So we are implementing a state-of-art called ATS Plus. It is called Automated Transfer System. The Plus is a very unique model that was, I think, will be the third country implementing that model. So it's always important when you come from behind, you always leapfrog with the new technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Some closing remarks. We have just 1 minute. Just if you could just comment on affordability, sorry.
Oh, okay. I mean, I think there was a panel earlier that tried to talk about cost, and they mentioned it's a tricky.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, the role of the government is to be the middleman and make sure that both parties are winning, but mainly truthfully leaning towards what benefits the citizen.
Okay.
But I think one advantage that comes with using DPGs is that, it lowers the cost of infrastructure that is normally incurred by companies or governments when you're trying to develop from scratch.
Okay.
And that goes forward to lower the cost of, the expenses they're incurring, hence lowering the cost of the end user.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing that comes with, for example, the switch, moving from one payment system that has been used in Rwanda to what has been launched on RNDPS, on the person-to-person wallet, using this is, if you're helping an end user go from incurring a cost of 20 cents to a cent, that's a very big difference. And I would say that that is one very big advantage that comes with using DPGs and of course the likes of modular.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to bring this to a close in the interest of time, but I just want to thank my panel. Thank you so much for making time to be here and for your contributions. Can you please give them a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you very much.